Bridgerton is a beloved Regency romance show on Netflix that explores complex character issues and stories, not just between the Bridgerton siblings, but also their potential love interests and various side characters like Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury. Not to mention their friends and confidants, and also various people they cross paths with on a daily basis. Their stories are heralded as fairy tales, full of lust and longing and eventually love, but these stories are also rife with heartbreak and suffering, miscommunication, and near-death experiences. But at the end of this tenuous journey, our beloved characters are rewarded with a happily ever after ending and everything their heart desires, a love match and a family to eventually call their own. What about the characters whose journeys did not end in happily ever after? What about those that were left behind or deemed unworthy to have this happy ending? Were these women truly villainous and deserving of what they got? Or were they merely victims of their own circumstances and the unfortunate obstacle in the protagonist's way to finding true love? And the show's inevitable scapegoat who must suffer so the favorites of the show can thrive. I'm Maddie Miss, and this is Ignore the Why, and today we are talking about the woman that the Netflix series Bridgerton has left behind. Don't forget to leave a like and comment down below, and hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Let's get started. Bridgerton writers, showrunners, and directors like to try really hard to convince the audience that they celebrate diversity, inclusivity, and strongly encourage tolerance on a massive scale. Lady Arnold's monologue to Benedict in season 3 greatly illustrates this fact. It was one of the many ways that the showrunners were able to break the fourth wall between the characters and the audience. Many showrunners do this where they use their characters as a vessel to try to teach a message to the audience. Lady Arnold really hammers home this message of love is love, and she emphasizes a point that people, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they look like, or who they love, everyone deserves a happy ending. And while this is an excellent message to portray in any show ever, Bridgerton does not always like to practice what it preaches, and some characters, despite who they are or where they come from, what they look like, or who they love, don't get a happy ending, and we're expected to believe that it is deserved. You can understand my confusion when a show like this that is so ready to stand on its soapbox and preach about how everyone deserves love is very discriminatory when it comes to who exactly deserves this happy ending. In the world of Bridgerton, only a select few are even allowed to have this love match, whirlwind romance full of drama and intrigue, all the rest of the normal characters are more doomed to a more historically accurate arranged marriage that best benefits their families and allows them to maintain their titles and fortunes. And these special characters are, of course, the Bridgertons and anyone they call a friend, confidant, and even a future husband and wife. Everyone who is a Bridgerton or on Team Bridgerton is rewarded, sympathized, and given a nice complex storyline, while those who stand in their way are cast off to the side and punished. They become the season's scapegoat, or the one character that the show puts all the blame and hardship on so our main characters can thrive. And even though the show likes to try to tell the audience that everyone is entitled to their own happiness, they are very stingy with who exactly is rewarded with their true heart's desires. It makes me question the overall virtue or the message of the show. It seems to talk the talk, but it does not always seem to walk the walk. Take Marina, for example. Marina is an estranged cousin to the Featheringtons, who's introduced in season 1. Marina and the Featherington sisters all make their debut in high society at the same time, only Marina is the one who is most successful. Their parlor is constantly full of gentlemen callers, only there to see Marina, while the three Featherington sisters are cast off to the side. And then Marina catches the eye of Colin Bridgerton, who is the object of Penelope's desire. Ever since they were kids, she's had a huge crush on Colin, and it has been her dream to one day settle down with Colin Bridgerton and finally join the family she has been so envious of all these years. She's treating the Bridgerton family like a sorority she desperately wants to pledge to. But alas, Marina starts to take Colin's attention away from Penelope and even proposes to her. But Marina has a little secret. Marina is actually pregnant, and the father of this child is a soldier fighting far away who does not know that she is with child, let alone his child. And adding insult to injury, the father of Marina's child dies tragically while in battle. And this man was the love of her life, and suffice to say that this loss really destroys Marina. And then in a desperate attempt To free herself from potential ruin, Marina tries to drink a special tea in order to, on purpose, lose her child. But the tea does not take, and Marina is still pregnant, and the longer she waits to find a perfect marriage match, the more she's going to show. She has to marry a wealthy man in order to secure her and her child's future. And like I mentioned before, Colin is so enamored by Marina that he wants to marry her, even though it's more of an unrequited love. But the show cannot allow this match to continue because, again, Penelope is destined to actually marry Colin, and the show had to find a way to destroy the proposal, and its way of doing that, and have Penelope, the nice girl next door, write a scathing article in her Lady Whistledown Society papers in which she outs Marina, and it ruins her reputation. Colin is heartbroken, and the wedding is called off. Marina is now completely and utterly ruined in the eyes of high society London, and her only Hail Mary saving grace was when George's brother finds out that she is actually pregnant, that the best way to honor his brother's memory is to marry the mother of his child. While Marina didn't necessarily get a happy ending, she at least was secure and was safe to live and thrive in a beautiful home where she can lead a life with her family. But for those of you who have read the books, you know that this is not exactly the true ending. Before I continue on with this exploration of Marina's character, I do want to say there will be spoilers ahead. I'll put up this book in the corner to let you know this is when I'm talking about Marina and I'm spoiling the book. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, just go ahead and fast forward to when you don't see this book anymore. I also want to make some content warnings ahead of time when it comes to suicide, depression, mental health, and of course, death. In Eloise's love story, To Sir Philip with Love, we open up the story to see a very depressed and despondent Marina who just fills her house with melancholy. She's always crying, she's always in a terrible mood, and then one day she finally decides to take her own life. Marina dies as a result of the failed suicidal attempt, leaving her husband and 2 children behind. Her children are very indifferent to the point where it's almost apathetic at how little they care about their mother's passing, brushing it off as oh, at least she's not sad anymore, at least we don't have to hear her cry anymore. Even Sir Philip finds himself relieved that the general gloomy gray pall over the house is finally lifted. Throughout the rest of the book, Marina is essentially described as this constant dark cloud hanging over everyone. And Marina was treated more or less like a ghost, haunting the house that her children and husband were living in that need to be dispelled in order for Eloise, again, the savior of their family, to swoop in and finally give them the happily ever after they so readily deserved. This poor character was dragged through the mud, forced to suffer so much, and then punished in the end for acting out a plot she had no hand in. It was Mrs. Featherington's idea to have her lie to the ton in order to save herself from destitution. It wasn't even Marina's idea. Marina wasn't even interested in getting married at all. She was just forced into this by Mrs. Featherington, who didn't want to see her family's good name suffer. Marina is treated with a lot of contempt and indifference in this show, and when considering her future tragic end, it almost kind of seems like the final twist in the knife. Almost like Marina deserved what she got in the end. Marina still ended up with the short end of the stick. Yes, she wasn't living in poverty, but she still wasn't married to a man that she actually loved. It definitely felt like Marina got the brunt force of the punishment for lying to the ton when she really had no choice. Women back then weren't able to get jobs. They weren't able to support themselves or their families or have any money of their own. Everything like that belonged to the closest male relative or their husband. And it's very funny how the show lacks a lot of empathy for the characters in the show that have this survivalistic mentality, almost like they're punishing these women for being gold diggers or for not being as rich as the Bridgertons, as if there is some implicit bias as operating in the show. Because again, the main protagonists of this story are white, wealthy English people who traipse through life very privileged and naive and very oblivious to the true difficulties of the world. What did Marina do that was so wrong that she needed to be punished? The only real crime that I can see her doing here is listening to Miss Featherington's advice and going through with this plot and defrauding the wealthy white men of the ton and being a gold digger. To put into context of the modern world, Marina was a single mother on the verge of poverty, had no money, no title, no substantial way to provide for her and her baby, who was forced into a very difficult situation, and unfortunately, desperate people do desperate things. She lied and deceived Colin just so he could eventually provide for her. And if Lady Whistledown hadn't come out and said it, he probably would have found out eventually and would have done the honorable thing and married her regardless. Very similar to what he did with Penelope in season 3. So it's very interesting again that Bridgerton is willing to give Penelope the benefit of the doubt, the woman who capitalized off of Marina's humiliation instead of Marina herself, the victim of the article. Like Colin mentioned in season 3, Penelope could have just come up and confronted him and told him about Marina's lies and deceit, and he probably would have listened to her that way. And again, maybe a lot of the hatred and vitriol against Marina comes from a lot of implicit bias of very politically charged issues. And also, this disdain can come from the fact that Marina is essentially an obstacle to Colin and Penelope's love story, and she is basically treated as a problem to be solved, not necessarily a character. So again, Lady Featherington is given a lot of benefit of the doubt, most likely because she is still technically loosely connected to the Bridgerton clan. Her daughter marries into their family, and she is able to benefit not only by the Bridgerton Association, but also from her daughter's talent and career as a writer. The way that Marina was portrayed in the show versus how Mrs. Featherington is portrayed in the show is a very interesting dichotomy because at the same time, these women are so similar to each other, and yet they are treated so differently that it really calls to question why the showrunners chose to do this. Were they unable to see the parallels between these two characters, or is there something else that probably prevented them from seeing Marina as her own person? But before we get into that, let's focus on another unfortunate scapegoat and victim of the Bridgerton empathy dilemma, and that is Edwina Sharma. Edwina Sharma is a gentle, sweet-tempered, and very distinguished younger sister of Kate Sharma. Now, Edwina and Kate Sharma return to London from India in order to find a suitable match for Edwina. Along the way, they eventually meet up with Anthony Bridgerton, whom Kate hates with the fiery burning passion of 1,000 suns. Like, they are not friends from the very beginning. She is very put off by Anthony's rakishness, but also his outright deplorable behavior, basically treating every single woman of the ton like a broodmare, someone who eventually produced him several heirs to take on the mantle of Viscount Bridgerton and nothing more. Kate is not impressed by him, but soon her hatred turns to passion and lust as the two of them suddenly realize that they are actually in love with each other. However, Kate refuses to be truly honest with her sister about her feelings for Anthony, and Edwina does not find out the truth until her wedding day, where she is publicly humiliated in front of the ton, including the queen herself. Edwina was this picture-perfect woman who checked off all of Anthony's boxes. I loved Edwina so much in season 2. She is so pure of heart, emotionally mature for her age, and overall just a really sweet person who is very sophisticated in her gentleness. She sees through to people and to who they truly are, and she doesn't want to hold grudges. She always has a very positive view of the world, and for some reason she is punished for this, almost like because of her naivete, it's her fault that she didn't figure out that Kate and Anthony were secretly in love with each other from the very beginning. Not only that, but Edwina was introduced in the very beginning of season 2 as a diamond of the water, one woman who was declared the fairest of them all, and she also outshined Eloise Bridgerton, a fan favorite. Not to mention, she was also the obstacle in Kate and Anthony's story, which again could have been solved if Kate was only very honest from Edwina from the very beginning. Instead, she let her sister almost get married to the man she just slept with the night before, knowing full well that this man did not love her sister, but actually her instead. Edwina was a threat from the minute she waltzed into the room. All eyes were on her, and she was deemed enemy number 1. She had a huge target on her back, but she seemed to take it in stride for the most part. Able to live up to Anthony's expectations as a perfect woman and potential mother of his children, and to also get a few gentleman callers along the way as well. The true tragedy of the character of Edwina is that Edwina didn't do anything wrong. She didn't commit any crime, she didn't defraud the ton, she never lie to anyone about anything. Kate was the one who was dishonest from the start. She never told Edwina exactly how close to destitution their family was. She never told Edwina that she actually liked Anthony. She never told Edwina that she actually slept with Anthony. The only thing that Edwina was truly guilty of was marrying a man that she didn't truly love just to help her family stay afloat and to make sure that she lived a nice, secure life and her children would be well taken care of. Again, not dissimilar to Marina's motivations as well. But then Kate, the person who is actually responsible for hurting her sister, gets absolved of any accountability when she becomes a victim of a near fatal horse accident. Now, Kate is in the position where she is vulnerable, and Edwina is going to look like a huge witch with a B if she doesn't forgive her sister, who is on death's doorstep. Of course, when Kate finally awakens, Edwina is so happy to see her sister alive and well that she forgets all about the horrible wedding incident and just decides to forgive Kate. Now, of course, Edwina was stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's not like she couldn't just forgive her sister who almost died. She would look like the bad guy. But the writers of the show, instead of drawing out this conflict and making it more realistic, maybe more genuine, they forced her hand with this deus ex machina moment, implementing this tragic near-death accident so that Kate became the true victim of the season and Edwina was the one who was in the wrong if she didn't forgive her sister. Kind of convenient, don't you think? So no matter what, Edwina would never get the true justice that she deserved because again, Kate's the main protagonist and she's Anthony Bridgerton's future wife and mother of his children, so of course she has to have the happy ending and be seen as a good person. But Edwina is not the main focus of their love story, so therefore she can be brushed aside so that the two main stars of the show can shine bright. Again, in the world of Bridgerton, if you get in the way of the endgame couple, you are enemy number one and you must be eliminated or made out to be a villain. Speaking of villains, let's talk about Cressida Cowper. Cressida Cowper was season 3's new target or scapegoat for the Bridgerton franchise. Now, this girl has been essentially painted as a two-dimensional mean girl throughout the past couple of seasons. While many fans may say that Cressida got what she deserved at the very end, I have to wonder, did the showrunners go a little too far? Season 3, Cressida got a lot more screen time thanks to the showrunners trying to draw out her character more. We got to see more layers of Cressida, we got to see more of her home life. And it became very clear to the audience that Cressida grew up in a very dire circumstance. She was the only child to the Cowper family, meaning that there was a lot riding on her finding the perfect marriage match to keep her family afloat. But her parents were very cold emotionally towards her, even bordering on emotionally abusive at times. They were very distant from her, only really seemed to care about her when it came to a potential match. They never really seemed to listen to her or really care about what she thought. She wasn't really a person to them. She was more or less the means to an end. Her father shows nothing but cruel indifference to her throughout the entire season and punishes her rather harshly for not finding a match sooner. He takes away her dowry, stripping her of the one only claim to fortune she has, and almost forcing her to marry a man that is old enough to be her grandfather. When Cressida is given an opportunity to tarnish her future marriage with this old crone, she seizes it. At the Bridgerton family game night, she announces that she is Lady Whistledown, rescuing Penelope from a vulnerable moment in which she would have to reveal her true identity to Colin, who again hates Lady Whistledown with the fiery burning passion of a thousand suns. Thanks to Cressida's outburst, Penelope is actually free to maintain her secret as a true Lady Whistledown. But not only that, she's able to conceal her secret from Colin to buy some time for herself as well to figure out how she's going to call Cressida out for lying to the public and trying to take the Queen's money. And while many fans may argue that this was a pretty bad idea on Cressida's part, I do have to say that desperate times call for desperate measures. Besides, who amongst us could possibly say we wouldn't have done the same exact thing if we were in Cressida's position? Or Edwina's? Or Marina's? But Cressida isn't capable of pulling off this farce by herself, because again, the Queen wants her to prove that she is Lady Whistledown. She can't just take into account every single person who claims to be Lady Whistledown. She needs receipts. She needs hard evidence. And Cressida turns to her mother. Lady Cowper takes up her mantle and her pen and scribbles a rather scathing article full of lies and scandalous insinuations, especially targeted towards the Bridgerton family. which is a very big Bridgerton no-no, and is what eventually leads to her and Cressida's downfall. Again, in this show, anyone who comes for the Bridgertons must be punished. Even though Cressida did not write the article, she still is the only one that really receives the most punishment for this role. And I ask you, what was her crime exactly? Taking credit for someone else's work, trying to collect some money so she can run away and not have to go live with her frigid Aunt Jo in Wales, and to also plagiarize someone else's idea. But again, Cressida didn't have a lot of options. Option A was plagiarize Lady Whistledown. Option B was marry a 70-year-old man and have his 4 to 5 kids and live in his very dark, dank, depressing home. In the show, this is a woman in desperate times, and she needs to find her way out. She needs to escape, and no one's going to help her, so she needs to put her big girl pants on and go out and fight for it. Now, compared to Penelope, who made a living off of humiliating people, ruining their reputations, and basically becoming a millionaire off of it, it seems very strange that Cressida seemed to take the brunt force of all of Penelope's consequences. Like, she got all of the Lady Whistledown hate. And at the end of the day, she was punished even more severely than Penelope, the woman who actually did damage to the ton. And then the show really tried to hammer down this point that Lady Whistledown is a feminist icon without actually giving us any hard evidence onto how that is. Because Lady Whistledown directly benefited from hurting other women. She compared Cressida to the devil, the succubus of the high water, in the same episode that Cressida lies to the public and tells them that she is Lady Whistledown. Even the queen treats her with more disdain, not because she is Lady Whistledown, but because she can smell a fraud, whereas Penelope she treats with respect because at least they have this intelligent repertoire. And the fact that Penelope, because she's heralded as this feminist icon, is basically allowed to just sidestep all the repercussions for her actions and continue to not only write her article, but be able to rebrand her image. And this woman, who again made money off of selling people's secrets, never was forced to pay back the community for all of her misdeeds. But that's interesting because when Cressida found out that Penelope was actually Lady Whistledown, she went to Penelope and tried to blackmail her out of 10,000 pounds so she could make a living, so she could be free. But Penelope also kept a huge secret from everyone in her life. She lied to people constantly, and she also listened in on people's private lives to sell to the general public so she could make money off of their suffering. The showrunners of Bridgerton can turn such a blind eye to their favorites' flaws that they choose to punish other female characters who are in very desperate, difficult times, despite the fact that they like to reward women and talk about class and talk about how all women are strong and capable and amazing, but not these women. These women are fraudulent, gold-digging, dishonest women who deserve to be punished. But then what about these other women who are also dishonest and fraudulent? Don't they also deserve punishment as well? Cressida is truly the most villainous out of this trio of scapegoats, but it definitely does not seem like the show is really taking into accountability of Penelope's actions. Penelope was the one who started this whole business with Lady Whistledown. She insulted the queen on multiple occasions. She threw her friend under the bus and tried to write it off as her protecting her friend's reputation. And then she ruined Marina's reputation instead of actually being open and honest and true to herself and telling Colin to his face in order to be a good friend. On Penelope's eyes, if she wants to be honest, she might as well make a few bucks out of it. Like, whenever I see Penelope writing and her face lights up as she's like tearing into her latest victim in her gossip column, all I can think about is Regina George writing in her burn book. It's not a very positive image. And if Lady Whistledown was actually a journalist, if she actually used her voice to elevate other people in society and give voices to the voiceless, then she probably wouldn't have been as rich, would she? Not only that, but she also had the support of her new husband, her friend Eloise, and her family. Cressida had nothing. All these characters in Bridgerton are flawed characters. Of course they are. It makes them more complex, more interesting. No one wants to watch a bunch of perfect cardboard-like cutouts of people just waltzing around the screen. A lot of shows nowadays have very unlikable and very flawed characters who do bad things just for their own kind of survival or even more selfish, empty reasons. But that's what makes shows more interesting, is introducing complex characters who don't always have the best motivations, who don't always make what we would believe to be the most moralistic decisions, and watching the drama unfold. But only allowing certain characters to get their just desserts does feel very hypocritical. When you compare these characters to other women in the show, you see a lot of similarities across the board. Almost every character has done something abysmal or terrible, but only some are given grace and the ability to grow and mature and become the best versions of themselves, while the other characters are cast aside. Penelope is a good example of this. Kate is a good example of this. Even Daphne, who literally forced herself on her husband, which traumatized him so badly that he stuttered, something he hadn't done since he was a child, something that he was very ashamed of. These women did not need to be held accountable or to be forgiven. Instead, their misdeeds are brushed off as a simple misunderstanding or justified reaction to a difficult circumstance. After all of this is really just a big inconvenience on the road to happiness. Because again, these women are the main characters and they can do no wrong. Honestly, I'm pretty sure these women could get away with murder, and the fans would still cheer them on. And if you look a little bit deeper into these women's stories, you understand that they have a lot of things in common with each other. All of these women take on the wrong, misguided mentor. Marina listens to Lady Featherington, Edwina follows Kate's advice, and Cressida listens to her mother. All three of these women are led astray and get the brunt force of punishment. Marina is essentially forced to marry a man she does not love. Edwina finds love off screen, and Cressida is again banished to Wales. I believe that there is a more sinister and more pointed underlying tone of the show, and that is this us versus them mentality. Like I mentioned before, the show favorites are the Bridgertons. Anyone attached to the Bridgertons, anyone who is Team Bridgerton. Anyone else who dares to either question or tarnish their reputation or steal their money or lie to them, defraud them, deserve an unhappily ever after. An us versus them mentality is something that is used very widely in cults. You can see this us versus them mentality in many different mediums. It's a very intentional tactic, and it's also very heavily rooted in emotion. The show does its hardest to convince us that characters like Marina, Edwina, and Cressida deserve their tragic downfalls, whereas Lady Whistledown is perceived as a feminist icon and powerful girl boss who is worthy of our praise. But I'm hoping that the cycle of the scapegoat comes to an end in the next season. Bronwell actually mentioned in a recent article pertaining to season 4 of Bridgerton that they are planning a redemption arc for Cressida. But unfortunately, this might be too little too late. I'm truly hoping that no other characters or actors or actresses are treated with the same vitriol and hatred as Edwina and Marina did. I'm really hoping that Bridgerton really starts to take a page out of its own book. After the rampant outcry of many people, articles, and videos speaking out against the unjust treatment of Cressida, I'm really hoping that the Bridgerton showrunners hear what the fans are saying, understand that the cycle of the scapegoat needs to come to an end. And I hope that they finally practice what they preach when it comes to full acceptance and inclusivity, when it comes to all characters and not just a collective few. Why does it need to be us versus them when it could be everyone? Alright guys, that was my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below what you thought of these characters. Did you think that they got what they deserved, or do you think that they were victims of their own circumstances? Don't forget to leave a like and press that subscribe button if you want to get more Bridgerton content. Have a great rest of your day.